All right, in this video, we're doing another DIY project. We're going to do a solid stain on a patio cover pole. Now, you can see that I already started and I put a solid stain down here. I did this before I installed the bracket, before I installed the pole, because I wanted to make sure that the stain was behind the bracket here, but the pole was green. I got it from Home Depot. It was freshly cut, so there was a lot of moisture inside it, and I wanted to make sure that it had time to let the moisture release, because the solid stain sealer that I'm using seals in the moisture, which we don't want that. So I wanted to make sure the wood was completely dry first. In fact, you can see right here some of the sap that's come out of this over the past few months. Okay, so general process. You're gonna wanna shake this and stir it. I've already shaken it, so we're gonna open it up, stir it again, make sure it's good, and then we'll start sealing it. Before we get started with that, let me tell you a little bit about the difference between a solid stain and a paint. A paint is basically just like putting a piece of paper, colored piece of paper, over the top of your wood. And over time, that might flake and come off, and it's just right on the surface level. Whereas a solid stain goes in and sinks in and soaks in and permeates into the wood. And so it's not going to crack and chip and peel off like paint will. Now, another difference is stain is a stain, it's not paint. And there's different gradients of transparency of the stain. You could have a transparent stain, so it just looks like the natural color of the wood, but it's protected. Or you can have different levels of transparency all the way up to a solid stain, which means it just looks like paint. There's a lot of pigment in there and it just looks completely solid, just like paint, but this is a stain. So you're gonna wanna use a solid stain on fresh wood. You're not gonna wanna put a solid stain over the top of something that's already been painted, because if it's already been painted, the solid stain is not gonna be able to absorb into it because the paint's already there preventing it. So only put it on fresh wood. Now you can, if you'd like, sand it down. We decided not to. We wanted this look, so there's going to be imperfections that are in the way, and that's okay. If it's a small piece like this, you can pull that off. It's not going to hurt the structural integrity of it, but we wanted this exact look and feel, and then we're just going to color it gray. All right, so let's come in here and let's get this started. Let's open this up. Even though I've shaken it, I'm still going to stir it. There's not much in here, and I haven't used it in a few months. So I want to make sure it's all the way stirred here. I did put a drop cloth down. This looks pretty good. Looks like it's mixed in pretty good already. We're just going to stir it though for a second. Okay, now when we apply the solid stain, it's going to be like applying paint. You're going to dip the paintbrush in. You don't need to dip the paintbrush in all the way up here. It's not going to do any good up here. So just get just the very tip. That's all you need. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to go with the grain up and down. Because this grain goes this way, you're going to paint it up and down. You're not going to paint the post this way or stain the post. You can go light if you'd like, but I want this to soak in, so I'm going pretty thick on this first coat, and then I'll come back with a second coat and get anything that I missed. Now you might have this happen where you can see the stain as it hasn't gotten in there because it's a pretty big deep hole there. So I'm going to get a little bit more stain. I'm going to use just the corner and put a lot in there, like that. And then just brush it up and down. Okay, and then just go continue this process for the rest of the pole. You might come to a place, especially if you're using rough cut wood, where the stain after a couple of passes with the brush doesn't get in there. So what I'm going to recommend doing is getting a little bit more on the edge of your paintbrush, like this. I have fresh part right there. You're just going to push it in like that. That works on knots or divots or chunks. And then after you have it in there, then you're going to come up and down, following the grain. So always stroke up and down on this hole, not left to right. Okay, so I'll show you one more time here. You paint over it, and you can see it didn't get all the way in there. Then you're going to get a little bit more. And you can be generous with this part, especially with a solid stain like this. It's just going to absorb in, which is only going to be good. And then brush it away until it looks nice. Okay, so I finished with the first coat. I was very generous with the first coat, so I probably won't have a lot that I need to touch up, but I only have to wait 2 hours before you can touch it up again. You don't have to wait 48 hours or 72 hours to add another layer. Now, I want you to see, this was the original that I painted a few months ago, and this is what I just did. So it's the same color, it hasn't faded, but solid stain over time will start to fade a little bit. So just so you know, there is going to be some fading that happens. You can add another coat later on. The nice thing about solid stain, if you wanted to paint it later, you can put paint over it. So I always recommend start with solid stain because it's going to absorb really well into the wood and look really good. But if you change your mind and want to paint it later, you can paint it later. If you paint first, you won't be able to do a solid stain. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. And if you have another project that you'd like me to do, you'd like to see how to do it, say so in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Thanks.